Welcome to this edition of News Today, a series in which we discuss and briefly analyze the important news of the day. Let's have a look at today's main headlines. India celebrates Janjatiya Gaurav Divas, or the Tribal Pride Day, to honor the tribal freedom fighter Bhagwan Birsa Munda. PM Janjati Adivasi Nyaya Maha Abhiyan has been launched. India, US and 12 other members of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity Inc. Supply Chain Resilience Agreement. A 21-day-long thermal vacuum test for the launch of NISAR Satellite conducted successfully by ISRO. The WMO releases the Greenhouse Gas Bulletin. The Computer Emergency Response Team releases its annual report 2022. Starting with the first main news. India celebrates Janjatiya Gaurav Divas, or the Tribal Pride Day, to honor the tribal freedom fighter Bhagwan Birsa Munda. Janjatiya Gaurav Divas is celebrated on 15th November to recognize the efforts of the tribal freedom fighters. On this occasion, the government launched Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra and the PM Janjati Nyaya Maha Abhiyan. India's freedom struggle was strengthened by tribal movements by Santals, Tamars, Kols, Bhils, Khasis and Mizos, among others. 15th November is the birth anniversary of Sri Birsa Munda, who is revered as Bhagwan by the tribal communities across the country. Let's understand more about Birsa Munda. He was also known as Dharti Aba and was born in Munda tribe at Ulihatu, Khunti district of Chota Nagpur Plateau region of Jharkhand. In the social domain, he stressed on the importance of prayer, staying away from alcohol, having faith in God and observing a code of conduct. Based on this, he started the faith of Birsait. Birsa also started the movement called Ulgulan, or the Great Tumult, against the exploitation and discrimination of tribals. This movement led to the Chota Nagpur Tenancy Act being passed in 1908, which restricted the passing on of the land from the tribal people to non-tribals. He exhibited values like perseverance, courage and resilience during his lifetime.
Now the next news. Recently, the Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Adivasi Nyaya Maha Abhiyan, or PM JANMAN, has been launched. Let us go through the important features of the Abhiyan. The Abhiyan aims to protect the tribes on the verge of extinction and nurture them. Earlier in Budget 2023, PM PVTG mission was announced to improve the socio-economic conditions of the PVTGs. The Abhiyan will cover projects worth Rs 24,000 crore for the overall developments of the PVTGs. It also includes missions based on providing basic amenities like safe housing, clean drinking water, education, health, road and sustainable livelihood. It also focuses on the complete coverage of various schemes like Ayushman Bharat Yojana, TB elimination, 100% vaccination, PM Surakshit Matritva Yojana and PM Poshan. Coming to the PVTGs. They're the most underprivileged and deprived tribal communities in India, characterized by pre-agricultural level of technology, stagnant or declining population, extremely low literacy, and economic backwardness. The center had started identification of PVTGs in 1975 on the findings of the 1961 Divas Commission. There are 75 PVTGs in 18 states and union territories living in 220 districts having a population of around 28 lakhs. As per 2011 census, Odisha has the largest population of PVTGs. Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra was also launched, which will continue till 26 January 2024 to ensure saturation of flagship government welfare schemes. Let us briefly go through the other important schemes for the empowerment of the tribal communities. Eklavya model residential schools that provide free education to ST children from class 6th to 12th in residential setups. Pradhan Mantri Van Bandhu Vikas Yojana, under which a venture capital fund has been set up to promote entrepreneurship and startup projects by ST youth. National Sickle Cell Anemia Elimination Mission and PM Adi Adarsh Gram Yojana.
In another news, India, US and 12 other members of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity Inc. Supply Chain Resilience Agreement. The Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, or IPEF, is a US-led framework to solidify relationships with partner countries and engage in crucial economic and trade matters that concern the region. It is not a free trade agreement. The IPEF partners, which includes India, represent 40% of global GDP and around 28% of the global goods and services trade. The IPEF has 4 pillars, namely trade, supply chains, clean energy, infrastructure and decarbonization, and the tax and the anti-corruption pillar. India has joined all pillars except the trade one. Let's understand more about the newly signed agreement. It aims to fortify and strengthen global supply chains and foster adaptability, stability, and sustainability. The agreement comes into force after implementation by any of the 5 member countries, and the IPEF Supply Chain Council will monitor and implement the agreement. Having said this, there are certain key benefits for the pact for India. It will aid India to mitigate economic risk and provide alternatives for critical sectors, enabling members to diversify and decrease dependency on Chinese supply chains. It will also aid in mobilization of investments for economic growth and deeper integration of India into the global value chains. Plus, it will help in creation of a seamless regional trade ecosystem to facilitate the flow of Indian products.
Coming to the next news, the ISRO has successfully conducted a 21-day-long thermal vacuum test for the upcoming launch of the NISAR satellite in 2024. A thermal vacuum test is tested in a facility that mimics expected flight conditions. Let us briefly know about NISAR, or the NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar. NISAR is a low Earth orbit observatory which is being jointly developed by NASA and ISRO. It will map the entire globe in 12 days and provide consistent data for understanding changes in Earth's ecosystems, like ice mass. It will weigh 2,800 kilograms and consist of both L-band and S-band synthetic aperture radar instruments, which makes it a dual frequency imaging radar satellite. Now, what are L-band and S-band radars? Well, L-band radars operate on a wavelength of 15 to 30 centimeters and are used for clear air turbulence studies, whereas S-band radars operate on a wavelength of 8 to 15 centimeters and are useful for weather observations. It has a 39 feet long gold mesh antenna reflector that focuses radar signals from the upward facing instrument. Coming to the significance of NISAR, its large imaging area of greater than 240 kilometers allows full Earth imaging in 12 days. It has high precision and resolution due to dual band radars. It can monitor Indian coasts, Antarctica and deltaic region bathymetry changes, as well as observe ecosystem disturbances, ice sheet collapses and natural hazards. The applications of NISAR include ecosystem and resource tracking, measurement of forest cover and land usage, oil and gas exploration, etc. Disaster management like tracking the source of earthquakes, landslides and oil spills and mapping the after effects of the disaster. It can also be used in cryosphere tracking, like changes in the permafrost, ice sheets and glaciers. Coming to the next news. Recently, the Greenhouse Gas Bulletin has been released by the World Meteorological Organization, or the WMO. The Greenhouse Gas Bulletin analyzes data from the WMO Global Atmosphere Watch, or the GAW program. GAW provides information on atmospheric composition to the public. It consists of a worldwide measuring network of observation stations and scientific infrastructure. The Greenhouse Gas Bulletin compares current global carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide levels with last year's and pre-industrial level, that is before the year 1750. It also provides insights on radiative forcing changes by long-lived GHGs or the LLGHGs like CO2, CH4 and CFCs. Let us go through the key highlights of the report. The global average CO2 concentrations have reached 417.9 ppm in 2022, representing a 150% increase from the pre-industrial levels. Methane and nitrous oxide concentrations have increased by 264% and 124% respectively from pre-industrial levels. From 1990 to 2022, radiative forcing by LLGHGs increased by 49%, with CO2 accounting for about 78% of this increase. Now coming to the challenges in addressing GHGs, or the drivers of climate change. As regards feedback mechanism, climate change has multiple feedback loops, including increased carbon emissions from soils and reduced carbon uptake by oceans and forests. The next challenge is that the climate may reach tipping points, that is thresholds triggering self-accelerating, potentially irreversible changes. Lastly, The natural variability, CO2, CH4 and N2O levels vary due to natural processes like El Nino. Let us briefly discuss the radiative forcing by long-lived GHGs. Radiative forcing represents the amount of energy per unit area that is added or removed from the climate system. It is the measure of how much these gases affect the Earth's energy balance. These gases trap some of the heat that would otherwise escape to space, causing the planet to warm up. Lastly, coming to the WMO or the World Meteorological Organization. It is a specialized agency of the United Nations with its headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland. It was established in the year 1950 and currently it has 187 member states including India and 6 member territories.
Moving on to the next news, the Computer Emergency Response Team releases its annual report 2022. Before we look into the report, let's first understand about Computer Emergency Response Team or CERT-In. It is the national nodal agency for responding to computer security incidents. It was established in 2004 and functions under the aegis of Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. Under the Information Technology Amendment Act 2008, it is mandated to provide incident prevention, response, and security quality management services. It operates 24/7. Coming back to the key highlights of the report highlights that CERT-In handled around 13.9 lakh cybersecurity incidents in 2022. Also, there is an increase in phishing, malware attacks, and vulnerable services. Additionally, approximately 20,000 website defacements were tracked and most attacks were on the .in domain websites. Website defacement is a type of cyber attack that alters or compromises the contents of a website. The report goes further and highlights that the Cyber Swachhata Kendra notified about botnet or malware to 94% of the subscribers. A botnet blending robot and network uses interconnected compromised computers for cyber activities. Having looked at the report, let's understand the importance of cybersecurity. It includes the protection of critical infrastructure, government initiatives like Digital India, and the protection of businesses and individuals from potential cyber threats. The government has taken various steps like the establishment of Indian Cyber Crime Coordination Center, the National Cyber Crime Reporting Portal, and a toll-free number 1930 to tackle cyber threats. Having said this, there are certain challenges in handling cyber threats. These include the lack of critical cybersecurity infrastructure, shortage of cybersecurity professionals, evolving threat landscape in cybersecurity like the involvement of non-state actors and organized crime. Also, the increase in proliferation of connected devices, new technologies like Internet of Things are also a major challenge.
The personality in the news for today is Acharya Vinoba Bhave. Recently, he was remembered on his death anniversary. He was a scholar saint and considered to be one of the great social reformers and spiritual heirs of Mahatma Gandhi. Let us briefly go through his contributions. He was the first to lead the individual satyagraha launched by Gandhiji in 1940. He led the Bhudan movement, the main initiative of the Sarvodaya movement in the 1950s. He received the Ramon Magsaysay Award for Community Leadership in 1958. He was also conferred with the prestigious Bharat Ratna posthumously in 1983. He exhibited the ethical values of non-partisanship, compassion, and objectivity.
As we conclude today's main news, let's go through some quick updates. Recently, the Chief Economic Advisor raised concern over the use of World Bank's worldwide governance indicators in rating assessments by credit rating agencies, especially for emerging economies. Worldwide governance indicators are designed to help researchers and analysts to assess broad patterns in perceptions of governance across countries and over time. India and the US launched Innovation Handshake to deepen bilateral tech ties. Innovation Handshake as a concept was developed under the US-India Commercial Dialogue for better cooperation in critical and emerging technologies. The Coconut Development Board has officially launched Hello Nariyal, Friends of Coconut Tree, Call Center for Coconut Harvesting, and other plant management practices. The Coconut Development Board is a statutory body established under the Coconut Development Board Act of 1979. The National Institute of Disaster Management recently got global recognition as Center of Excellence on landslide disaster reduction for the period 2023 to 2026. NIDM is a statutory organization under the National Disaster Management Act 2005. Recently, a tiger was killed in a territorial fight at the Tadoba Andheri Tiger Reserve. The reserve falls in the Central Plateau province of the Deccan Peninsula. Scientists have reportedly discovered a kill switch that triggers death of cancer cells. They have identified a crucial epitope, which is a protein section that can activate the larger protein on CD95 receptor that can cause the cells to die. The US Food and Drug Administration recently gave nod to world's first enzyme replacement therapy. It approved Edzynma, the first recombinant protein product indicated for on-demand enzyme replacement therapy. Italy's Mount Etna volcano began erupting on the island of Sicily. Mount Etna is the highest active volcano in Europe and is the most active stratovolcano in the world. Before we go, it's time to put your knowledge to the test in today's segment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed this edition of News Today. To get the answer to today's quiz and to download the PDF of News Today, make sure to check out the links in the description below.